Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. I'm your host, Brenda, and this will be the political news edition on the first day of December 2016. I have 5 articles in this episode. The first article is off of Bare Naked Islam, and it is entitled, Texas Governor Greg Abbott to sign law banning all sanctuary cities in the state. Withdrew Texas from the Muslim refugee resettlement program. Now he will stop mayors and sheriffs in Texas from declaring their cities sanctuary cities for illegal aliens by withdrawing state funds to the cities and potentially arresting anyone who ignores the ban. There is video in this URL if you would like to pull it up and take a look at it at your leisure. All of my URLs that I bring up are in the description of my videos for your convenience, and you can do further research on your own. It says Texas Governor Greg Abbott will ban cities from sheltering illegal aliens in his state, especially the capital, Austin, which declared itself sanctuary city under Obama. Abbott already deployed National Guard and added DPS officers to the border and filed the suit that halted Obama's illegal amnesty order. The next article that I have for you is off of BizPac Review, and it says House Dems in D.C. vote to keep Pelosi as their leader as her home state votes to regulate cow farts. I cannot make this stuff up. The Democratic Party has learned no lessons after the drubbing it took at every level of government on the election day, if its recent moves are any indication. While the state of California is drafting rules to literally curb the supposed global warming effects of cow farts, the Democratic Party in the House voted to keep California Representative Nancy Pelosi as its minority leader. The vote to keep Pelosi isn't a big surprise, but the move to create regulations for Californian farmers to curb the effect of cow flatulence is both stunning and absurd. If we can reduce emissions of methane, we can literally help to slow global warming. California Air Resources Board science advisor Ryan McCarthy, who is helping to craft the rules for the law signed by California Governor Jerry Brown in September, told the Associated Press. The new regulations might include changes to what cows are fed, but the solution of them all is what they want to do with the gas that cows do emit, according to the Associated Press. State regulators want more farmers to reduce emissions with methane digesters, which capture methane from manure in large storage tanks and convert the gas into electricity. Yes, Californians, your electricity might be running on cow flatulence and manure by as early as 2030. And apparently House Democrats think this line of thinking falls in line with mainstream America because they reelected the most left-wing representative, the most left-wing city, and the most left-wing state to guide them by a vote of 134 to 63. If this is the Democrat strategy to win the 2018 and 2020, Republicans have nothing to worry about. Fox News' Brett Hume found it ridiculous. There are many tweets in this. If you would like to take a look at those, you will get a chuckle. The next one we have is off of Infowars.com, and it says, report, Hillary planning yet another run for president in 2020. Safe to forget about her. Reports are emerging that Hillary Clinton is already planning yet another run for president in 2020. According to national journalist, columnist Ron Fournier, Hillary's involvement in Jill Stein's widely derided recount is all part of the agenda. Raising doubts about legitimacy of the election, even without overturning result, is part of Clinton's plans to keep her options open for 2020, tweets Fournier. Another part of the strategy is the endless series of random viral selfies Clinton has taken with her voters while walking in the woods by portraying herself as a regular person. Hillary is attempting to eschew the reality that she is completely out of touch realist or elitist. This is also why she's randomly appearing with so many Democratic operatives, PR flacks in grocery stores and on hiking trails recently, by the way, tweets Sonny Bunch, editor of the Washington Free Beacon. These encounters seem about as spontaneous her entire presidential campaign, which was excruciatingly conventional, writes Andrew Stiles. Indeed, many observers suggested that at least one of the encounters was totally staged for a public relations stunt. Clinton, whose ailing health became a huge focus in the 2016 campaign, will be 73 years old by the time of the next election. If you think you're depressed about the thought of Hillary Clinton 2020, imagine how Democrats feel, jokes Jim Gerharty. A lot can happen in 4 years. The next one is off the businessinsider.com. Trump is meeting with an ex-bank CEO who wants to abolish the Federal Reserve and return to the gold standard. As President-elect Donald Trump transition rolls on, more and more attention is being paid to possible selections for a variety of high-ranking positions and meetings that might help decide these appointments. On Monday, Trump will meet with John Allison, the former CEO of the bank BB&T and of the libertarian think tank, the Cato Institute. There have been reports that Allison is being considered for the Treasury Secretary. Trump has on the campaign trail questioned the future of the Federal Reserve's political independence, but Allison takes that rhetoric a step further. While running the Cato Institute, Allison wrote a paper in support of abolishing the Fed. I would get rid of the Federal Reserve because of the volatility in the economy is primarily caused by the Fed, Allison wrote in the 2014 for the Cato Journal, a publication of the Institute. Allison said that simply allowing the market to regulate itself would be preferable to the Fed harming the stability of the financial system. When the Fed is radically changing the money supply, distorting interest rates, and overregulating the financial sector, it makes rational economic calculation difficult, Allison wrote. Markets do form bubbles, but the Fed makes them worse. It suggests that the government's practice of insuring bank deposits up to $250,000 should be abolished, and the U.S. should go back to a banking system backed by a market standard such as gold. Allison also argued for higher capital reserves of up to 20% of assets at banks. On the other hand, he also argued that the government should repeal 3 of the broadest banking regulations. We should raise capital standards, but it is even more important to eliminate burdensome regulations, including Dodd-Frank, the Community Reinvestment Act, and the Truth in Lending, Allison wrote. About 25% of banks' personnel costs relates to regulations. Banks cannot pay the regulatory costs and have high capital standards. This is similar to Trump's desire to roll back regulation, including Dodd-Frank, on financial institutions, although he has since backtracked somewhat. It is unclear if any of Allison's policy views will ultimately become a part of Trump's plan, but given the unconventional nature of his ideas, the meeting is notable. And the final article that I have for you is off of yahoo.com, and it says, Trump very impressed with Petraeus as he weighs top diplomat job. President-elect Donald Trump stepped up his search on Monday for a new Secretary of State with a focus on David Petraeus, former U.S. military commander in Iraq, whose mishandling of classified information led to his resignation as CIA chief in 2012. General Petraeus was very impressed, Trump said on Twitter shortly after Petraeus, a retired general, left an hour-long meeting with Republican winner of the November 8th election at Trump Tower in Manhattan. Trump's consideration of Petraeus, who has also been mentioned as a contender for the top job in the Pentagon, adds a new layer of drama to his unusually public deliberations over the top diplomatic job for his administration. Petraeus, who led international forces both in Iraq and Afghanistan, was sentenced to 2 years probation and fined $100,000 last year for the unauthorized removal and retention of classified information. He admitted sharing classified information with his biographer, with whom he was having an affair. The scandal forced Petraeus to resign from the CIA in 2012. Petraeus said after meeting Trump that the New York businessman basically walked us around the world, and he showed a great grasp of the variety of challenges that are out there and some of the opportunities as well, Petraeus told reporters. Trump, who takes the office on January the 20th, plans to hold talks with Mitt Romney on Tuesday in his second recent meeting with the 2012 Republican as presidential nominee. A Republican source close to the transition team said that it had appeared late last week that Trump was leaning toward choosing Romney as his Secretary of State, but that the appearance of Petraeus at Trump Tower suggested the president-elect was still undecided and casting a wider net for the position. U.S. Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani are also in the mix for the job of America's top diplomat, Trump aides say. Frances Townsend, a national security aide during the administration of Republican President George W. Bush, also met Trump on Monday. Petraeus' past mishandling of classified documents is unlikely to be an obstacle to Trump offering him a top government post, said the source who has advised the transition team on national security. That is despite Trump harshly criticizing Democratic rival Hillary Clinton during the election campaign for using a private email server while she was Secretary of State. Trump often compared the prosecution of Petraeus with a lack of legal action against Clinton, who was investigated by Federal Bureau of Investigation but never charged with any offense. Just based on his public statements, I think Trump sees Petraeus as a good man who made a mistake, who did a fraction of what other people have done and received a lot more punishment, said a source who has advised the transition team on national security. Among the Trump transition team, Petraeus and Romney are supported by Republicans looking for a candidate with gravitas who can unify the party, the source said. Giuliani is favored by loyalists who worked on the election campaign. Kellyanne Conway, his campaign manager, said Romney would cause a backlash among his supporters. Ideological conservatives hope Trump picks John Bolton, the former ambassador to the United Nations, the source said. Corker is well regarded, but some in the Trump camp do not want too many senators coming into the cabinet, the source said. Trump arrived back in New York on Sunday after several days in Florida for Thanksgiving. He caused a stir Sunday when he alleged on Twitter that serious voter fraud had occurred in the presidential election in New Hampshire, Virginia, and California states won by Clinton, but provided no evidence to back his assertions. The White House said on Monday there had been no evidence of widespread election fraud in the presidential contest, and all three states rejected Trump's allegation. New Hampshire Deputy Secretary of State David Scanlon said, "There's no evidence that we've seen that supports claims like that. Voter fraud does occur, but it occurs in isolated instances." California Secretary of State Alex Padilla called Trump's allegations unsubstantiated, and Virginia Commissioner of Elections Eduardo Cortez said they were unfounded. So there you have the political news. If you like this, give it a thumbs up, share it around, leave comments for me, let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next broadcast.